Today, ChillPoint is back, and they announced the Switch 2. You're welcome. This is ChillPoint.
So why haven't you fixed Silk Song yet?
I mean, Nintendo called us, and they were like, hey, we want to announce the Switch 2. And we were like...
That's cool. We do a show on Thursday. They're like, great.
And they're like, what would be a good day to do it? And we were like, Thursday is good. Thursday would work out well. Although if you could do it early in the day, that would be great.
Yeah.
And yeah, Silk Song. It was Switch 2 or Silk Song. It was one or the other.
Yeah, I would not expect an announcement for ChillPoint 2, Richard Ehrman. This is essentially ChillPoint 2, like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's chiller and cooler.
Or maybe it's 1.5, like The Lion King. 1.5.
They did 1.5 after they did 2.
Yeah. I guess we need to launch a 2 then, don't we?
You gotta do.
Sorry,
yeah. Ever seen?
It's
ever
1.5.
Ever
like
seen
The Lion King.
You know.
Ever gone through like a book series?
Where everyone learned fractions.
You ever go through a book series and realize that they have a 0.5 of a book that they printed like years later afterwards?
Or they like filled in some stuff.
Yeah. That's always a weird thing to me.
Well, it's when they're writing a book, when they're doing a book or a story or whatever, and they write the whole thing, and then they're like, this was way too popular, but we had a nice story arc, so we can't like keep doing more. So we need to like fill in the weird little gaps.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Time to write some errata
I mean, if you think
for my novel.
if you think video game releases are weird, wait till you start noticing alternate covers of books, and then when they do a re-release, extra chapters from a different character's POV get added.
Wow.
As
Jesus.
bonus chapters.
I
It
haven't-
gets weird.
I haven't seen books with DLC before.
I could, oh man.
Typically, it seems like it's free. Like you can go find the other stuff elsewhere, but like, yeah, it's weird.
New
It's so
edition,
weird.
but now it's a chapter from Princess Leia's perspective. All right.
I mean, sort of video game related. I remember like that was like, back when like Mass Effect 3 came out, and there was all the consternation about the ending of Mass Effect 3. People didn't like the ending, and didn't like that it didn't seem to be your choices over the course of the game didn't actually seem to make much difference.
Right.
for the
Yeah,
ending.
yeah, that's right.
And they were very grumpy about that. And there was, boycotts and people and stuff. And it felt very weird to me. I mean, I'm not an author or anything, but, I was writing comedy sketches, and you sort of create things.
Yeah, you
and
work
it's,
to an
and
end.
it's like, and I'm also an avid reader. And so it's like, yeah, that ending sucked. But like, that's the ending.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how it went.
Yeah, sometimes a story has a bummer ending.
Yeah. It's also kind of saying sometimes all the decisions you might make through life have no effect.
But then, turns out I'm the foolish one because they updated it and changed the ending.
Yeah. So if you
They
want
can
us
do
to
that.
change
Yeah.
the ending of any of our sketches, I guess start a fucking campaign online or something, and we'll react to your outrage.
Donate to our Patreon,
Yeah.
But
and we'll consider it.
Yeah. Be sure to put in your own jokes at the end so we know what to put at the
there
end
are
of the
literally
sketches.
because I just started going back to like physical books. I've seen like things where they're like, oh hey, this new book, it's coming out. There's going to be a cover variant at Target. It's just a cover variant. It's got like some fun stuff on the side of where the pages are, like pictures or whatever, and those are kind of cool. And then they're like, but don't worry, fam, I got you. The thing on the book that says exclusive to Target is a sticker, so you can take it off. It's not printed on the cover. And I'm like, why is it a sticker? Stickers leave residue.
Yeah. You know how hard it is to get a sticker off the front of
Can't
the
you
book?
do Saran wrap or something?
Yeah,
around
make
it?
a slip
What?
cover.
Why?
that's getting into like...
Also, print it on... Wow, printing it directly onto the cover. Ew. That's a thing?
But like that's
Gross.
getting into like 90s era comic books. Mm-hmm. Where they were like trying to push the collector's thing, and there
For
were, like,
variants, yeah.
different variant covers and stuff, which incidentally collapsed the comic book industry.
How about that, huh? Yeah.
The cover variants for the book that I was being shown to is mostly just like it's the same picture, but the colors vary slightly. It was so weird.
My favorite is, sorry, I'm going to cut in here before you begin the show. My favorite is, there's manga that I've seen where the two protagonists will be on the cover of the regular edition of the tankobon of the collected works of one volume, right? But then the limited edition has them both on the cover, both in the same position, but now they're turning their heads to look at each other, or one of them is doing something different with their arms or something else. It's like you're getting the variant cover. The limited edition is actually like a second before or a second after the picture for the first cover was taken. It's kind of weird. Like
That's a cute idea.
Now I want
weird.
I want somebody to have like that's like their favorite manga,
Yeah.
and then at some point you just swap it. So they're like, the cover, like
They get gaslit into
they
being
were
like-
looking at each other, and now suddenly they're looking at you
Yeah.
out of the cover. It's like, were they always like that? Oh yeah, they were definitely always like that.
Like I'm in favor of they do this on some of the Switch games where they have like reversible covers so
Right.
that you can do whatever. Or Nintendo has done it for a few games where you could just download other covers.
Yeah, I did that
that
for
are variants.
Okami. I have Okami for the Wii.
Okami did that.
Yeah.
I think Octopath Traveler had a variety of ones you could download because of all the different characters.
Or they'll have the standard cover has like all the legal stuff they have to have, and then they have like the reverse of the
Yeah, they've got like
the reverse cover is
yeah.
just the art
Yeah.
with the
Those are
title,
nice.
so that you don't have to have like all the
Yeah.
rating stuff.
Physical stuff is weird. It's really cool, but it's also just weird.
Anyway, hey,
Look, the longer we don't talk about video games, the longer we don't talk about the Switch.
welcome to ChillPoint, show where we talk about things vaguely related to video game news, and also the episode of Checkpoint that just went up last day.
Oh,
Yesterday.
Obi strips. Yeah, those on books are neat.
You get real deep.
I hate
And,
those though; they get lost.
Yeah, we were away for
Weeks.
well, we were away for about 3 weeks, and then I think we were away for sort of a total of a month, or for 3 weeks, and then we did the quiz.
Right.
So that was also like
which
not a regular one, but
Counts. It's not a regular episode, but it still counts.
Still
as a
counts.
checkpoint.
Yeah.
and
I only
once-
bring this up because somebody was like, "Wait, the number was this number, and the last episode was this other number, and they skipped one." I'm like, "No,
the quiz
This
counts
is
as an
the
episode.
quiz counts as
Yeah.
an
In fact,
episode."
Anyway, it's a very fun episode.
And
So-
we were still happening,
exactly.
sort of. I think.
Pardon me while I sign back into Google
So you
Docs.
really
Hooray.
should check Google while we like rant and rave about books. And
I mean,
things, and then-
he was clicking on stuff the whole time, and it was fine. It's just
Yeah.
the moment that the show starts that it's like,
Maybe
Yes.
Google also wants to help derail the show.
yeah, that's all right. There was at least coming back now. There was some news, a fair chunk of news, because we didn't end up covering any of the stuff from the last chill point on this
We didn't,
checkpoint.
no.
Nope.
So there was enough news for this one to feel like this is all pretty fresh news.
And we don't have to talk about last chill point because we already did that.
Yeah, that was what last chill point was
So,
for.
If
so yeah,
you want to know what
let's-
we did last chill point, pause here,
And go watch.
go
last
watch
Chill Point.
that one, and then it's like a flashback.
Let's talk about Path of Exile 2.
All right.
It's a game
It is a game that is
patched.
currently in early access.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
In fact, this is
What?
this is patch 0.1.1.
I thought Path of Exile 2 was actually out.
Nice. It's like Linux.
No, Path of Exile has been out for a long time. Path of Exile 2 just entered early access.
Okay.
And specifically, though, what we're going to talk about is how hard the game is and how it shouldn't be as hard as it is. Right?
Well,
Yes.
it's in beta, so I guess it doesn't matter.
So
Is it still beta if it's not out? Or is this alpha?
The term beta has lost all meaning.
Well, sure, most words have,
is-
but
this
which
is
which
early-
one are
this-
we? Which
this
one are
is-
we pretending this is?
This is early access. I guess beta would probably be
Early access.
alpha. They're saying, I don't know. Anyway,
Okay.
so one of the things, if you don't know, Path of Exile is it's a game, sort of similar to like Diablo.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of moved in to fill the gap that Diablo left when Diablo 4 came out, and in fact, I think Diablo, maybe even Diablo 3, but it's sort of when Diablo started sort of pushing a more kind of mass market appeal.
An arcadey kind of experience.
And Path of Exile came out to basically the people who liked the super
the grind.
the super grindy and super coming up with your builds and doing all this
Right,
kind of stuff.
yeah.
Okay.
That was sort of a bigger thing in Diablo 2.
Right.
So it was sort of like, if you like Diablo 2, you can come over to our game rather than going in the direction that the other going. Anyway.
Okay.
And so, the famous thing that for Path of Exile is that there's the skill tree is like it looks like a mandala, like it's
okay.
this giant thing, and people post that as like to show how complicated it is. You don't have to do
Final
that
Fantasy
all-
X was like that.
You don't have
like-
to do that all at once.
Yeah.
Yeah, skill Yggdrasil.
Oh yes. Okay, I have seen the skill tree. I
Yeah.
watched Adam stream it once.
Yeah, Adam
was
got really into Path of Exile
massive,
1. I don't know if he's into 2, but
I believe I've heard people refer to it as a skill tree, skill forest.
Skill Forest, yeah.
But if the term that I've actually heard a lot of people use when like forest is in like this is overwhelming because I expect a tree, but pie because it's kind of a pie shape with like
Right.
things is I think more the terminology, but
Oh, he's been playing Path of Exile 2 as
Yeah.
well. Nice.
yeah,
Um,
it does look like an amazing skill tree.
and one of the things about it as well is that it rewards, sort of deep knowledge of this stuff. And you can get yourself into a position, like there are bad builds, right? Like if you're just wandering around the skill tree without knowing what you're doing,
Right.
you can make like a non-viable character.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's possible, like, but it rewards knowledge and stuff. So people who are
Yeah.
deeply invested in it like
And
that idea.
there's lots of keys to pick up.
There's tons and tons of stuff, and you can respec, and it's not the end of the world. But now the problem that Path of Exile 2 is coming out, and obviously this is in alpha, beta, or whatever. They're still working on certain like balance issues because they want it to be hard. And in fact, there's this great quote from Grinding Gear Games. By the way, that's the name of the game.
Good. Okay.
They know what they're about.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Don't plan on
It
changing.
seems pretty. Yeah, they know what they want to do.
But it's saying there's an interview that's saying, to me, I feel like to be a game, you have to have some level of failure that's possible. The experience penalty. So he's talking about that people are upset about the amount of pushback, like how much. Apparently, the difficulty curve is not very curvy. The end game stuff really knocks people down.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And like when you die, you lose some XP and you sort of lose a bunch of stuff, right? So it's very discouraging for people.
Oh, so it's not like you die and then you have to start over somewhere else. It's you die and stuff gets you're punished for death.
Yeah, you're punished for death.
Right.
And so they're talking about there's a few accesses that they want to and they tweak. So they just brought out an expansion or a patch, I should say, that which I love these these kind of patch notes. Monsters will leave behind fewer deadly explosions. So yay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yep.
There were entirely too many deadly explosions.
All right.
Well, when the body is dead, sometimes gas just leaves.
And
Endgame bosses.
yeah, bosses can be attempted now more than once.
So you only really do it once before, and if you lost, that was it. You
Yeah.
have to start over.
Item quality will be improved, which should allow players to survive the campaign and create more powerful character builds as they reach the most difficult dungeons. So, yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of taking this idea of like, we get that the game is hard. That was the intention, right? To be like, because that's what people wanted Diablo 2 is making cool builds and feeling very powerful and doing all that kind of stuff. But with that, it means that if you're going to build a game that you want to drag people along with, that you have to give them room to experience and grow and understand what's going on with their builds. And if you're making it too punishing, that's going to be, they might lose interest too fast.
I mean, it depends on what
that might
kind
be how
of
they're feeling about this.
group you're trying to target, because like there are people who like intensely hard games.
Yeah, if you're targeting Adam, right? He wants, but Adam wants that. He wants to be.
Yeah.
He wants to run into that wall because that's where he's learning.
But there is that thing of like, difficulty. There's different ways to do difficulty.
Yeah. Sakurai talks about that in some of his of his videos that he did about game design, where he talks about the idea of push versus pull and how there has to be a push and pull built into, like, there has to be something that feels like you're going along, and that, but also the risk versus reward, because you have to say, like, we want you to push your luck, we want you to take more risks because we want you to get bigger rewards. And it sounds like these guys they're in that same camp where it's like, we want to do that, but maybe what we did is we pushed too much on the side of that it's too difficult for you to move too far.
What I'm saying is game balance is difficult already, but it also kind of depends on what you're aiming for with it, because it's not
right.
You can't just universally say, oh, all games have to be balanced in this way and that makes everyone happy.
And
that also know your audience, and you have to.
That also has to do with things like Dark Souls. So take like Dark Souls versus Hollow Knight, let's say, right? Hollow Knight's also a pretty punishing game to play, like in terms of boss fights and everything else. I found it difficult. The tiny bit that I played Dark Souls for, I was like, I don't like the feel of this game. I don't like how this, like the movement and the dodging and the hitting things and what I'm like, I don't like this.
Sure.
But I like the feel of Hollow Knight.
We're gonna say if you're playing Dark Souls and you don't like the movement, the dodging, and the hitting things, it might not have that much for you.
Might not be my kind of game. And I think that's the thing where it's like, I thought, oh, I don't like Souls-like games. Like when I tried them, like, I just don't like Souls-like games. And I'm like, I don't like Souls-like games that are like Dark Souls, that are set up like that, I don't think.
Yeah, I think
like I
Hollow
played Tunic
Knight...
and I was like, Tunic is fun, but the fighting feels very reminiscent of a Souls-like fighting. And I was like, I need to just put this in easy mode for a couple of fights because I just need to get beyond this because I'm sick of trying to
win. I think Hollow Knight appeals to you more because of the Metroidvania platformer style rather than necessarily the mechanics. But the mechanics do feel good for you.
Yeah, and I was willing to get good. Like the only thing I couldn't kill in the game was the Radiance.
Yeah.
And so ultimately it's like...
You got like 99%
second place behind my wife, I don't feel so bad about that.
It's a rough fight.
It's a very rough fight.
It is.
I was pulling for you.
So, I mean, the other thing they're talking about here is like right now, maps kick you out. Like a map is like in the end game thing, you get maps.
Yeah.
Which are like things that you find, and then you sort of go into the map and play. It's like a little mini. It's like a procedurally generated dungeon.
Oh, and then kind of like saves it for you. You can go back and fight.
Yeah,
it again.
you like carry it with you. So it's saying maps kick you out after one death, forfeiting all the time and materials you invested in them, and some of your experience. So you can lose a bunch of progress and stuff.
Okay.
So that's still happening now. Although that's one of the areas that they are thinking of maybe adjusting, making it so that you have like a couple of tries before it kicks you out.
That's interesting.
Different stuff like that. One of the things that they talk about though is that especially when you're making a game like this where there are so many sort of knobs to twiddle and different ways that they can make it easier or harder, they do want to be and especially this is part of the reason why they're in this sort of public early access alpha kind of time is that, you know, if you make the item drops too good, to the point where it's, you know, creating an experience that you don't want, pulling that back is hard. You know, players don't like it when you make it, you know, make it less rewarding. Like, it's easy to be like, hey, the thing you like is going to drop more often, yay. But if people are, you know, if that's causing, if there's too many item drops and you want to pull it back, that's a harder sell to the player base. So they want to be a little bit careful about that. Anyway, so I just thought that was mostly an interesting thing to talk about, but it
the other
also
part-
ties into another story.
Yeah.
This
Now, there are two ways of playing Path of Exile.
Yeah.
There's the
play it yourself or get someone else to do it. Like what?
Yeah.
well, there's this way that we've been talking about, which is pretty punishing.
Right.
There's also hardcore mode, which is you die, your character.
Oh, your stuff's gone.
Oh,
your
like
character
like
has
an,
your
like
character's
like
dead.
an Iron Man.
You have to restart. Yeah, it's
mode,
like an
or
Iron Man thing.
Shoot, what do they call them in? They have a term for this in Fire Emblem.
I was gonna say this is like a soul, Steel Soul run.
Yeah,
Yeah, but that kind of thing of one life.
Yeah.
You're done. Like there's several games have different terms
but
for them.
yeah, so it's called hardcore mode in this. And if you play in hardcore mode, there's like a leaderboard of people playing in hardcore mode. And obviously, this is a really grindy game, so you know, it takes a lot of time
Yeah.
to play in hardcore mode, and then you die and you
Yeah,
lose
well,
it all.
because putting yourself in a mode like that changes the decisions you start to make, right? You maybe play a little bit more carefully, or you
And-
don't want to necessarily take a bigger risk because you're done.
And from what I understand, Path of Exile is one of those games where things can go sideways on you like really fast. Like you're like, I'm got a really good build. I'm killing this guy. I'm doing all these things. And then
I'm
wait
a
a minute.
genius.
Oh no, the thing I'm doing isn't working.
Oh, no.
Oh no. And then
Right.
Oh no.
Get too confident.
yeah. So anyway, noted rich person, Elon Musk.
I believe we had
Gilded
a crap.
jackass.
I believe we had a crap shot for this. It was something like piss baby.
Yeah.
Cry something.
I like
Yeah, not a fan of
Grimes ex-boyfriend.
boyfriend. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, for whatever reason, he, as well as being very rich and owning a bunch of companies and all these things, he wants it known that he's also a super hardcore gamer. And he's talked about, like on X Twitter, he's talked about
like when people refer to it that way because it sounds like this
Yeah,
used to be
Twitter,
Twitter,
yeah, yeah.
but
I mean,
it's
it is.
actually called X. And
It
It
so
also
it like
used to be
really
Twitter,
works.
so it works,
Like
yeah. But he's talked about Path of Exile, saying that it's a fun game and all these cool things about it.
Yes.
And then he decided, and that he's really into it. And so he decided a couple days ago to stream himself on X, because it has a streaming service system that,
Yeah, so he's
as
trying to-
far as I can
trying to-
tell, no one uses.
trying to push that kind of thing. I mean, he's been trying to push that a little bit here and there.
Yeah. He streamed himself playing, and it turns out that not only does he enjoy playing it, and he's a super cool gamer, he is actually one of the best Path of Exile 2 players in the whole world.
Oh.
His character in Path of Exile 2 is, I believe, in the top 20.
Sorry, can I get this straight? This was a streamed thing. This wasn't just like a piece of fan fiction you wrote.
No, this was a stream where he was playing his Path of Exile 2 character, which I believe, yeah, it's a hardcore character, and it is level, yes, was. It died, apparently.
No shit.
Between when
mean,
this story came out and now,
I feel
at
like
some point,
At some point,
at some
those
point it
those
died.
characters do die.
But anyway, so the character was like level 96 or
97. I think
97,
it was,
yeah.
In the write up.
which puts it at basically like in the top 20 hardcore characters currently existing.
Right.
And in order to get like this is a grindy game.
Yes.
In order to like, there are basically professional, Path of Exile 2 streamers, like people who are streamers who are dedicated to playing Path of Exile 2.
Yes.
Who are nowhere near that level.
Ah. Huh.
And so immediately people were like, wow, that is... And the thing is, this isn't just like a skill thing. This is a time thing. Like, it doesn't matter how good you are at the game. There's a fundamental amount of time that it would require to get up this high. And so and also like and of course this is just came out of early access. Like, the game hasn't even been around that long.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like he built this up over like 2 years. So the game has only been out for a month or two.
So the question is, in that case, is like, and so he would have had to spend a ton of time doing it, which does not seem consistent with all the other shit he seems to be up to.
To the point that if I was a shareholder in one of his companies, I would actually start questioning his fiduciary duty to the company.
The many companies that he should be running.
That it's like, hey, wait a minute.
And
don't worry, I'm sure they already do.
So, but on top of that, you expect somebody with a character at that level to be demonstrating a certain level of proficiency with the UI and with the interaction and with the play.
As he was playing, he was sort of, doing the streamer thing, talking about like, oh yeah, I'm going to go over here and stuff. And people noticed that he was using a lot of terms from Path of Exile 1. He was also like, and he was, clicking on things that he clearly couldn't do yet, or that he, and he was looking at items in his inventory and complaining that they weren't high enough level because the level of your item isn't supposed to be the level of your character.
Right.
It's just like the minimum level that you need to be in order to use the item. Also, apparently his items were like the greatest items you could possibly have in the game.
Right. Right. Okay.
Like, his equipment is like, apparently you would spend hours and hours and hours and hours like grinding and rolling to get this good equipment.
Right.
And so, people started to be considering that theoretically, in order to get this character, he should have had to have been playing thousands of hours, and people were confused about this.
Like, he didn't know the terminology properly, and there's just things that he should have picked up by.
And I mean, I know the immediate assumption is that, okay, so he paid somebody to play up an account for him, right? Like, let's take it a couple things. It could be he reached out to somebody who had a high level account and said, "I'm buying that off you," just out of the blue. Just contacted somebody like, "Fuck yeah, $100,000, sure, why not?" Right? Let's pretend. I don't know. Or he is paying a pro gamer to play this game for him 24/7 and get his account up to where he wants it. I'm like, that's also a big ask, but okay. Or he's paying like a ton of people and they're trading items back and forth to get like the best stuff to Elon. Sure. I think one thing that didn't get brought up when we were thinking about it was he went to the company and said, "I'll give you $100,000 for the best character, like for just a stock character in the game with all the best shit. Will you do that for me?" And that's also a possibility, and no one's talking about that. Because you could do that if you have that kind of money and you walk in and be like, "Hey, guys, could we just give you $1 million and would you give us a god character?" It's like,
I also didn't think of that, but I guess maybe you could do that.
Laserbeaks just mentioned that too. It's like, did he buy it from the devs? And it's like, I don't know, who knows what happened in this case. People are saying in chat, and it's like, well, grinding your games would never do that. It's like, sure, but if they needed an influx of cash, maybe they would do that to keep making the game. Who knows? We don't know. And nobody's actually asked anybody yet, right? Like, nobody's gone to anybody to say, "Hey, can we find this out?"
Something that Kathleen mentioned in the story, talking about it, that was great is, like I was saying, there's these maps, which are basically like these like sub dungeons that you can go into, and they're an item that you carry with you, and then you sort of go into it, and they are randomly they're procedurally generated. You can like look at the stats of it, and there's different modifiers on them and different stuff, and that's sort of the main end game thing. While he's streaming, in his inventory, there's a tab that's called Elon's Maps.
Yes.
Well,
and
it's
that
a map,
right, and that's filled with a bunch of these maps that are all on the easier side of thing. As
So like these are
you
the
know,
maps you should go hang out in.
as purely speculative way, I would say, they're the maps that somebody who was preparing this account for him to use might have put there so that he could play on some maps and not be in danger of dying dying this hardcore character that people have spent thousands of hours building up.
I think that's him aside. That sounds like an interesting idea to be able to save some maps in your own section and go hang out.
Maybe he just called his map section Elon's map.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to. Anyway, so this went back and forth. Then this other very prominent sort of YouTube commentator, video game streamer type guy called Esmond Gold, who's previously been pretty. I wouldn't say he's like a. He's not.
They've been chummy.
Yeah, he's not like a political commentator that much, but he has talked positively about him in the past.
Yeah,
and I guess they were friends or sort of whatever.
Sure, whatever rich people do and hang out together.
Whatever you account for, like social media acquaintances. He was came out. He did a video about this because it's the kind of thing that he deals with, sort of video game drama stuff.
Yeah.
And Elon did not like that, apparently. He took away his blue check.
Oh, no.
On Twitter. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Lowered the boom. I think he like blocked him on Twitter or whatever.
He did.
He took out his blue check mark or something. And
then he published DMs that he had with Elon directly, and people are saying that's in contravention of TOS because Elon should not be able to publish your DMs with. And I'm like, but if they were Asmongold's DMs with Elon,
there was some confusion there originally that like people were like, did Elon Musk just publish Asmongold's DMs with somebody else?
Yeah,
because he has access to the Twitter backend. It's like no. It was
their conversation.
Their conversation, which has this weird thing about like, so who are these editors that are in charge of your account?
Yes.
And he's like, they're the people who edit all my videos, and I give them a cut of the ad revenue on the account. It's a pretty normal thing. And there's some people who are talking about this were like, does Elon think that like they're editors like in the sense of like a newspaper editor, like they're the ones who are telling this streamer what to do rather than people that he's hiring to edit his videos?
Even then, that would be like a chief editor who sticks people out on jobs, right? And there are editors who just go over pieces and
sorry,
check,
I got a phone call.
check the edits, and be just very angry about this phone call. He's thrown his phone on the ground, but he's left now.
And like Heather edits ChillPoint.
There was a comment.
And yes, she tells us what to do, but that's a different circumstance.
Kind of. I can't force you to do things. Make my job easier if I could. There was a comment on the video that was like, I'm letting out the secret that Heather edits these. And I'm like, oh, good. Somebody read the credits.
Yeah.
We get comments every now and then that's like, I think so-and-so edited this video. I'm like, oh, well, you could have checked that. There were credits on that video.
Anyway, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. It's not like I'm sitting in the room telling you how to talk or anything. It's just more of like, hey, don't do
next time
bumping
maybe
on
don't
the table really loudly.
Next time, maybe don't do that.
This thing, or if you're gonna do this kind of thing, it's easier if you roll back and like.
Yeah, if you do it this
allow
way,
for this amount of dead space to happen, so I can cut it out, so it's all there, as opposed to rushing into another sentence that I have no,
If you did it this way, it would make my edit a lot easier.
Yeah. I just kind of say it that way, right? It's like, hey, if you made my job easier. No threat behind that.
Anyway, it's just this like strange, he could have easily, even if he was like, buying a character or whatever, if he had bought a character that was like plausible, then nobody would have cared. But not only did he have to buy a character, he had to buy a character that's like one of the best characters in the one of the most experienced things in the entire
got the money
game
for
thing.
it.
If you're gonna come home with an F on your report card, then you definitely just change that sucker to an A++.
Right.
Like that's what you do.
I mean, if he wants to buy things,
You look at
maybe
your
he
mom
could,
and you're like, "Fuck you."
maybe he could pay somebody to make a better car than the piece of garbage he made.
Anyway, let's. Oh, and by the way, I want to shout out to Nelson, who wrote that story.
Yeah.
And then.
Oh right, we're still in story 1.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it was sort of story 1 or 1.5. There you go.
What's story 2?
Story 2. This is one that lots of people accurately guessed was a story that Cameron wrote, and it's about this patent. It's just a patent. Mm-hmm. This is not something that is actually, and it's probably not
That's the
going to be
Microsoft one. This is a Sony one.
Yeah, this is probably not actually going to happen, and I don't even know what it means if it would, because it's silly. But anyway, Sony, when you apply for patents, it takes a little while for them to actually be published. So a bunch of patents that Sony applied for a while ago have been published and made publicly available. And the one that was most interesting to me was this thing, and it's a machine-based learning model system. It's effectively a way to anticipate user commands and to decrease latency by preloading command, which is not that uncommon, right? We've talked about here on ChillPoint even before. We've talked about the idea of on like Stadia and stuff, doing the thing where like anticipating what the player is
predicting what the player will actually do, and already kind of
and like pre-rendering
pre-rendering that so that they can get ahead.
To decrease the to decrease your latency. That's what this is, except the part that caught my interest was it's like we're gonna use machine learning to anticipate what the commands, but we're gonna be using the camera to do it. So we're not doing like based on what the in-game stuff, like what the in this situation people usually jump or whatever.
Right.
We're doing it. We're using the camera, and so it's getting the person, which boggles the mind as to what that would actually mean.
Yeah.
This is obviously in a patent. They're sort of they're not very specific, but it boggles the mind that like when you make a certain face, that means you're probably going to jump.
Because I was thinking that it's like if you could do that, then you'll game it, and how you'll game it is that if you're playing easier games or doing whatever, you just basically be like, okay, I'm definitely going to make this shot. You click a foot switch, you turn on a big red light in your room so everything gets lit up really nice and bright red, and then you kill the thing real fast and you turn off the red switch. So now you've trained the machine learning that whenever they see everything really heavily red in your room, that means that you're going to kill something. So then you're like, great, now that I've trained this thing enough, just turn on the red light and play the game the entire time, and you'll fucking make those hits every single time.
Yeah.
I'm exaggerating.
I guess what I picture is, in like 90s,
Julia Mon, you have my best wishes to do whatever you like at this point.
90s, 2000s era people on like sitcoms playing video games where they make like the very wild, exaggerated motions.
Yeah.
And it's like there's some truth to that, right? Where if you're like playing a racing game, you kind of maybe lean forward or you do whatever. But I'm like, that's what I picture when they're like, yes, our motion capture will figure out what you are. It's just like someone wiggling their arms around really fast. Also,
by the way, and maybe this is not actually unique to this patent. Maybe this is a standard terminology for this kind of stuff. But a machine learning based model configured to release user commands to a computer game at the time when the command correctly aligns with what is going on in the computer game.
Yeah.
Which I think is like that just means playing the game.
Yeah.
Releasing, like, the player releasing commands to the computer at the time when the command correctly aligns with what is going on in the computer game
Right.
is called playing a game.
Yes, you're right. Based on input, a thing should happen, right?
But then the extra bit here is the command being this includes the command being predicted and released before the user action is completed.
Yeah, that's the weird thing, and I get why that might be interesting, because it is, if it's a timing, if you come down to things like timing, you come down to things like, split second, frame perfect, whatever, and you're like, well, we're building a model that if it knows that you are good at doing these kind of things, then a momentary slip up should not keep you from being able to accomplish that thing. But I'm like, if the whole point of playing the game is it's your skill, and if you're being like, oh, well, a dropped packet on a Bluetooth communication means that you don't make that one shot out of 1,000 when you would normally make it, it's like, we have a response for that.
mean,
Rhythm gamers use wired controllers for a reason.
Yeah, of course we do. But like, what if the slip up is that you just missed the button?
Yeah, you misclicked when you would always normally do it.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, there's some amount of bad
Yeah.
luck, or you're just tired.
I jumped.
Yeah.
Anyway, obviously, again, this is just a patent. Probably nothing will come of it, and if it does,
Well,
this is just
we'll know
random
eventually. Right
speculation.
now.
But it seems so ridiculously like how could it possibly mean anything? And then Cameron takes it in a fun direction where maybe this AI version, this AI model that's being built will know you better than you know yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's so fun.
Because there's the one hand of like, this will get you kicked off of your insurance, and then there's the other hand of, but maybe this actually is a form of love. And the thing, like, reading it, I'm like, this could be also seen as an accessibility thing.
I mean,
that's the other way to look at it. It's not being couched like that, but it's like, you could think of it as, oh, I can analyze play. I can get to understand how a person acts, and like, oh, well, if the difficulty increases, that I can step in as a means of augmenting their ability to play this game.
I don't know that that's what people mean when they. I'm not discounting it.
Yeah.
Please don't take this negatively. I just don't know that that's what people mean when they say they want a game to be more accessible to them.
Yeah.
Is for it to predict what they're going to do.
Yeah. If you're to being able to like smooth out input, I think is what you would use this for. And they're like, well, in order to smooth an input, you have to do it by analyzing someone's posture. I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. That doesn't seem right to me somehow. But
it seems like a very narrow accessibility thing, but I don't know.
I'm reminded a little bit of like something that I think Gran Turismo or one of the big racing games implemented a few years ago. They called it Drivatar. Drivatar.
okay.
Basically, it's
like the word avatar and drive kind of.
It was it's a neat idea. I think it's still a thing, where basically it is training an AI model on your driving, and then that AI model can go out onto the internet, and your friends can play against you.
Oh, like having a ghost
when you're not there.
Yeah, like having a ghost car.
Except it's not.
It wouldn't be ghost data.
It's not going the exact path.
Yeah,
you did.
it just drives like you do.
It drives like you
so
did.
like on unknown tracks, things you haven't played before.
Which is it's sort of Forza. That's what it's from. So neat. It's a neat idea.
Yeah.
And so you could see a version of this, where it's doing that for like a bunch of other games. It's like we talked last week about the PUBG guys working on their new like AI co-pilot thing.
Right.
Where you can have like an AI who
squat up with a bunch of boys who aren't real. Yeah.
Yeah. What if it actually is, trained, actually trained on your friends? So it's not just an AI that does whatever you tell it to do. It's an AI that acts like an asshole, like your friend does.
Who doesn't get over to you in time to heal you and
I
stuff?
don't know. I don't like. It's one thing to be like, oh, you're replaceable at your job because other people know how to click buttons at the right time. It just feels like another one entirely to be like, you're replaceable as a human being entirely, so why are you here?
This is very like on a continuum. This feels like it's an evolution of the Coyote Time. A thing that I learned about recently. Coyote Time is being able to jump even though you're not standing on the block anymore.
Oh, right. Just giving you that little extra,
you
got a few extra pixels at the end of the thing.
Yeah, you've got a bit of
okay.
a bit of an extra frame to be able to. By the way, fucking jump in Super Mario Brothers Wonder. Mm-hmm. I played that as Daisy as well, so I got to really like kind of live what you must have lived at the same time. I hate that goddamn level. I must have played it 100 times in a row.
Oh, is that's the
Oh my god, Paul.
That's the music level where everything's happening.
Yeah, and then I found another one where it's mostly vertical, and I was like, we'll come back. But the first one that I found, I was like, oh, I get why Paul had some problems with this too. But
I haven't played this yet.
But the idea of like this is like Coyote Time writ large, where it's like, oh, we're going to smooth out an account for input that should have come at a certain point. We're going to let you have that input despite the fact that you're a frame late.
I like that.
Sure.
I like that term. Especially in the context of like, oh, we'll let the jump go a little bit later.
Yeah.
Because, Wile E. Coyote is known for falling.
Yes.
For
getting a
not
little too
making
far.
the jump.
Yeah,
he goes too far. But he doesn't make the jump. Mm-hmm. He doesn't recover. No. Anyway. I think that's...
I feel like we went through that pretty well.
This is actually a positive story. I don't know why I have to preface that.
I don't remember.
This is so Squeenix. Square Enix is introducing a new.
This seemed neutral to me, but
okay. Well, yeah, I guess it's neutral. Yeah, is introducing a new harassment policy, and when you see that, your first are like a little bit, because usually what that means is like there's been some horrible harassment at the company.
New rules get made because things have happened,
and so it's like we're introducing a new harassment policy that like all executives need to keep their hands to themselves or whatever.
Yeah.
But no,
it should be a rule, not a policy.
This is an external harassment policy. So
again, something probably happened and rules happened.
I mean, definitely stuff happened with
multiple companies
with Final Fantasy games.
Yeah.
But yeah, Square Enix is joining a couple other Japanese companies, Sega, Level 5, Rakuten, and the idea is this is like a change. They're sort of codifying this as company policy.
Yeah.
It's not obviously there's no like legal. There's no change in sort of legal status or anything, but they're just basically making it known that they are going to treat harassment of their employees very seriously. And punishments for that could include withdrawal of services, i.e. banning your account.
Yeah.
Up to legal ramifications in terms of actually, police or suing,
which
or
makes
whatever.
sense.
And we've had this occur.
Which, again, they've always been able to do, but
Yeah.
now they're just sort of actually putting it in writing.
Yeah,
that they can.
like with what happened with Bungie, which I don't remember the full. I don't remember the full details of the story because I think this is maybe 2023. But that whole kind of episode they got into where it was like we finally had to go after and sue this dude, and to get him to like stop, to punish him for the fact that he was so focused on
to stop him from doing.
Yeah, and it's like right this was one of these things where I'm like, anytime a corporation comes out and says, hey, consumer body, we're enacting rules to keep you from having any feedback at us.
So yeah, there is a word.
That's worrying.
There's a version of this that is like not so positive.
Yes.
Right. Depending on how it's implemented, but it is interesting, this thing of like, no, you know what? sometimes the customer is just wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, the customer's right in terms of taste, and that's it. Like,
Yeah.
Isn't the customer is always right part of like one of those sayings that's part of a longer saying?
yeah,
that
it is. The
doesn't-
customer is
that-
always right in terms of taste.
Yeah.
That was the original thing.
Right, because
Yeah.
people always do that where they shorten it down to something that sounds snappier, but
actually-
it loses meaning
Yeah.
and context.
All it was trying to say is that you might put a product out in the world and it doesn't sell. You might be angry about that, but it's like, you know what? You didn't make something somebody actually wanted to buy, because the customer's always right in terms of their taste. If it's not to their taste, they're not going to buy it.
So the interesting thing about this is they categorize this policy into two sections: harassment. So that's what you would expect. Stuff like abusive language, slander, and then including like trespassing and stalking and dangerous things. But then they also have a category called undue demand, and this is the one that raises a little bit of raises my eyebrow slightly. Again, this is what does this mean and how is it actually going to be implemented?
Yeah, what's the threshold?
So, because according to this policy, undue demand, for which you could be punished by in-game things, being your account being banned, legal ramifications, etc., include things like unreasonable requests for monetary compensation, demanding the company apologize to you, or demanding excessive punishment of employees. Which, again, the word unreasonable and excessive is always in there, right?
Right.
So it's like, it depends on what they consider to
yeah,
be reasonable.
and so yeah, that's the when you get into the wording of these things, sometimes stuff is left a little vague, because if you get it too specific, then what you get is people who, I'm not touching you.
Yeah.
Right? Like that whole.
I'm not saying the thing you told me not to say. I'm just saying a bunch of terrible things. Yeah.
I'm done. I'm doing this exactly to the wording, so you can't punish me for it. And that's typically why you leave a little bit of room in there.
And I mean, that makes perfect sense. It's just depending on how it will actually be implemented. Because, of course, the idea that you could be, at its face, you could sort of be like, the idea that you could be sued for asking for your money back for a game you didn't like, obviously sounds horrible.
Yeah.
Or doesn't, but presumably that's not how it would actually be implemented.
Yeah.
Or be actually... Anyway.
It is because it can come down to the tiniest things, like the undue demand thing of like, I couldn't get logged in. I would like free subscription time for that.
Banned.
We just saw it go by in chat when you brought that up, right? And it's like, right, it could literally be, it could be as minor an infraction as that, and whoever's working the customer service that day is being like, I've already dealt with 1,000 of you, you're getting banned too, right? Like it's that it could be as minor as that, and then everyone's like, whoa, we really don't like this, and then everyone will revolt and be like, no, we have the right to say, hey, we couldn't get logged in for a day, so usually I'm entitled to some sort of compensation,
like a warning
yeah
before a banning, unless you do something that's so incredibly egregious that.
Or else the terms of service change to say that it's like, hey, so you're not entitled to be able to log in 30 days out of 30 days in a month, that you're like all 30 days of 30 days in a month that you're actually subscribing to. We have this level of uptime, and you should be able to get logged in for at least this much time, and if you cannot, then we can go to arbitration or whatever. But
anyway, and then a little stinger on the end there to remind everybody about previous years when Square Enix has been like, this year, 2023. NFTs are going to be the way it's going to go.
Holy shit, that changed the industry.
Yeah.
We're all using NFTs now.
No, those are out. AI's in now. And
right.
And then they've also, yeah. Did I say NFTs? I meant AI.
Mm-hmm. Sorry. Didn't mean to get that wrong.
Well,
same
at the
people
end of,
still working in the same spots.
At the end of the year, you got to fill in your Mad Libs and for the new year.
Oh, speaking of Mad Libs,
Okay, all right. Finally, we'll talk about the Switch 2. Now,
my God.
what I think is interesting about for this story, there's a behind the scenes aspect of this story.
Okay, yeah.
Their initial version of this story was not that much different, but it was there was a bunch of differences to
Some
it.
nuances.
So,
Are you saying this
What's-
story had an original version?
well, what
We're gonna break
what
kayfabe?
Beach says in the story is accurate in that we knew, the rumor was it was going to come out on Thursday.
Yes.
We expected it would be like midday Thursday. It would be too late for us to report on it.
Yeah.
And so,
And we had an understanding that there would be an announcement of that on Wednesday.
We expected because they were going to announce a thing that they would tell us that they were going to announce a thing.
Yeah, because they do that with directs and stuff as well. So it was understood that, well, there should be an announcement for a teaser or reveal or
Well,
whatever.
because I personally thought that and I've been staying further away from video game rumors, but like you can't see not all of them. I assumed that the idea would be that we were getting the full reveal, and therefore you wouldn't just drop a full reveal, right? You would tell people, hey, we're going to do that on this day.
15 or 20
and
minutes
Nintendo
of...
does have a tendency to tell you just like the day before that they're going to drop a thing.
Yeah.
If I had considered the idea that it was going to be a first look or a teaser than a full drop,
yeah.
like that makes sense.
Yeah. And so Beej wrote the story night before with the idea that instead, so all the flowchart stuff was
We made a flowchart.
all the flowchart
Yeah.
stuff was still there.
The night before,
Yeah.
I made this.
But there was a bunch. The introduction was a little bit different. I forget how it actually went, but
I could probably remember most of it, but it's like, hey, they released a thing this morning, probably. And the note one, the initial thing was, they did not.
right.
And so the entire note section is essentially being like, why did I think that they would? People are idiots. And then I'm like, people are idiots. And then I get another note and it's like, people on the internet are idiots. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that makes, wait,
Right.
hang
so
on.
At that point, you thought that they wouldn't actually be announced.
I thought that they weren't going to get it because we didn't get an announcement of a reveal.
So many note cards this week.
Yeah, and so I had, and so the last line was, wait, because the last note I got was, except for our fans, not you guys are great, patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. And then I'm like, boy, you write these awfully fast. That's what the initial part was supposed to be. And it was mostly about how we did not get a reveal. So we should be able to use our magic flowchart to tell us what actually it's going to end up being.
Happened.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what could have
Yeah,
happened.
because this was to err on the side that if they did say something, it would be in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Either we've already recorded or we're in the middle of recording.
So yeah, and then
6 a.m.
and they ended up dropping. They dropped it like 5 a.m.
Was it
didn't
5?
Yeah.
I know that they typically will drop some stuff at like 6 a.m. our time, and it's so annoying.
They dropped it way early, and it was it wasn't a lot of information. It was just like the whatever first look. And so
And so I woke up in the morning and panicked.
and so and it was like, but it was that thing where it was like, at that point, it will have been long enough after the thing came out that making that joke seems a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally like the part in the story where B just like past me is still like basically now me, so or past you still exists, and I've decided that we're going this way.
Yeah, the part where I say, look, just be happy that to me the you yesterday is the same as the you today, so don't get caught up in all this causality shit. That did not change at all. The bits about I know that there's a switch because I did see the switch too, but I hadn't. Except maybe I didn't, and that's that got changed a bit. There's about basically when I woke up, as Heather said to me, she's like, I knew you were going to throw away 75% of your story. Like that was just, it had to get rewritten. And so I'm awake, I've got a bowl of cereal in me, and I'm at home on the toilet, and I'm like, let's go. And in about 10 minutes, I rewrote like half of this story to make it make more sense. Sorry, to make it make less sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, we can talk a little bit about Switch stuff, but
I would love to.
it was it was the purest usually when they call something a first look, it's like, oh, we're gonna show you some of the cool things that this stuff can do.
Sure.
This is just a first look. This was literally look at it. Okay,
That's what you're gonna
So
get.
the look of it, what it said to me was a few things. Was like because it showed you the old Joy-Cons and then they got bigger, right?
Yeah.
And some people have complained that the Joy-Cons aren't big enough. So to me, that was kind of like, no, they're bigger now. The thing is bigger now.
Yeah.
It looks sleeker, I guess. Like it
Well,
has
they rounded the
way,
edges.
but with the way the coloring is,
And they went
stuff,
to,
like
like,
they
the-
chose to show you a black design with hints of color, as opposed to like when we initially saw the Switch, which had the red and the blue.
Well, I mean, when we
Joy-Cons.
initially saw it, I think what we saw was just like you're getting black controllers, and they're like, but click, and they show you the blue and red ones. You're like, oh, I see.
Yeah.
And then that became the one that they really pushed, because they're like, everyone's really responding to all this color, because Nintendo has a tendency to lean into doing color more than the other console
which,
manufacturers.
Again, like this just felt weirdly sleek.
Yeah.
I'll be a little bummed if the Switch 2 is going to go like super whatever serious and corporate.
Yeah.
Makes like it's all going to be black.
Yeah, I mean, I do think the magnetic Joy-Cons, right?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
click into the side, which means they probably click in faster than doing the rail slide. But what you all remember the warnings of don't accidentally put the little clip grip on the wrong way, because otherwise it gets stuck on
Yeah,
your Joy-Con, right? Well, if they're magnetic, that probably can't be a thing now.
Well, and it sort of looks like the sort of clip it sort of extends a little bit, so they probably don't need like that separate extra piece to fit onto it.
Now,
anymore.
there was you had mentioned earlier yesterday when we were having a job about this. Let's talk about that little connector, because there's a little connector that's sticks out inside the ridge housing, and people on Reddit were saying there is no way that's going to last. But you saw a post from somebody that was like, "Hey, hang on a second, let's talk about that."
Yeah, someone was like, because it seems like that would be a weak point.
Yeah.
And the person was like, you know what, the weak point on the Switch is those rails that the Joy-Cons
Yeah,
go
that
into.
is outside of like Joy-Con drift, the rails are a common place for braking.
Yeah. So that connector.
So they're saying like if that connector is got a little bit of play to it, it actually might not be a big deal.
Because if it's like reinforced and it's given a little bit of flex, like maybe that is the end of a flex cable held in a rubber housing, so that when you press on it or push on it or anything, it can move just a little bit with the thing while you're putting stuff in and out. They would have. The fact is that they've had 7 years to test a new piece of hardware,
Oh yeah.
and they're like, this is going to be a failure point, because engineers aren't stupid. So they're going to have thought about how this works.
I mean, those same engineers did make the Joy-Cons.
Yeah.
With the drift.
With the rails and everything else, yeah. So I mean, but it has to. I think to them the idea has to be the Joy-Cons have to go on as smooth as being able to put your Switch in a dock, because it's a USB-C connector, but I've never used a USB-C cable that just kind of slickly slides into position and slickly slides out, right? And it's because that the USB connector that's in the dock is not exactly the same kind of thing you'd see on the end of a USB cable. It is a USB connector, but it is different in a way that when it goes in nice and smooth, and it comes out nice and smooth with no like literal latching. And so I think that's the motivation behind the magnetic Joy-Cons as well, is to be like, these are going to have to go on and off in a way that's very smooth and very slick, and what has to be the thing that binds the thing on is the magnets. Now, would it be better to do something like MagSafe, like Apple does, where it's like all the power and whatever else is transmitted through pins touching each other because the magnets pull them in nice and tight? Maybe not. I don't know.
I mean, how well like the magnets work and how everything feels is going to be somebody has to actually touch one
yeah.
kind of thing.
Because you don't want them to be so weak that you're doing this thing with your Switch and all of a sudden everything falls apart.
Yeah, I don't think that just seems like a weird thing to do then.
Yeah.
I've never quite locked in the technique of like if you've got your Switch in the dock and you want to pull both the Joy-Cons off at once, like
Yeah.
so because you got to like grab it and then push the unlock buttons and then pull it up while using your thumbs to hold the
Oh,
base.
yeah, I know. I always do one at a time and
Yeah.
use the other hand to
I
hold
keep-
it down.
I keep trying to do it both at once and I never get it.
No. I do think
I feel like maybe with this you could do that though.
Yeah.
I do think the kickstand is pretty interesting. Just in
I'm
terms
glad that
of
they
like,
finally realized that the stupid little wiggly kickstand
well,
was
this
a bad idea.
that's the thing.
they
So
already-
in if you go over like the DS and the 3DS and everything, there's typically like the cartridge slot gets moved around, the stylus place where you put the stylus gets moved around, and I kind of find that interesting because there's points where it's like, do you really need to move the stylus if you've already found the best spot for it?
Right.
And so what I feel like we're seeing, so the initial Switch had the tiny wedge kickstand
Yeah.
Right.
that you popped out and it could pop off really easily. That was meant to be you're not going to accidentally break it kind of feature. I know people complained that it would pop
Right.
off, but
It's better than it actually snapping
that
off
was-
and never
that
being
was on
able
purpose.
to reattach it.
the
Yeah.
OLED has a kickstand that's like wider. and
It's the
a big-
full-
it's the full back, but
Yeah.
it's like a big, sturdy kind of frame piece. But the new one is like this little wire frame. And I think that's kind of neat because it's like, you should have a kickstand that's
Full
longer,
width.
so you don't have like the half wobble
Yeah.
thing going on.
But we don't
But
have
it
to
uses
use
less plastic.
Yeah, or metal. Really, I think is
Or
probably the back
metal.
of the case will be metal. But it's like it doesn't have to. They don't have to give up an entire piece of the case and make the entire case thicker to accommodate an entire piece of it coming off the back. They can just have just the bit that they need be like that's external to the rest of the case. And then the case can actually be a little wider to accommodate more battery, more screen, more logic board, whatever, right?
Yeah, I just find those bits kind of interesting because it's like they didn't really have to redesign that if they didn't want to.
Yeah.
They probably could have kept with the OLED one.
Although sometimes things like that, like or like moving the stylus around and different things, like sometimes that's like the stylus has to move because the internals are moving.
Yeah.
And now there's no longer a slot. So like
But
Yeah.
sometimes
it's
it's like the kickstand or the stand is like the last thing they're putting in. They're like
the
there isn't
stylus,
room to do the way we did before.
and I mean, I'm mostly right-handed, but like the stylus was on the right-hand side for a while, and I really loved it there because it was easy to
Right.
access and easy to put back. And then they put it in like the front, and I was like, well, it's a little annoying, but it's still kind of there. But they also at one point had it in the back, which
Yeah.
is just like every time you want to put away, you kind of had to.
And they were telescoping then because they were like, well, the thing is this small, so when
Yeah.
you pull it out, you have to extend it, and it's like that's just extra work. And yeah, the best styluses are the ones that just slid in from the back and could be quite long. Other things about this, it's bigger, right? Like the Joy-Cons are bigger, and you're right. A lot of people complained, oh, they're too small. But there are people who are like, they are the right size.
Yeah,
for
I
me.
was fine with them, but
Right.
I
And-
get it.
Yeah, and
I
they're
have
like,
tinier hands.
by making them larger, there's that thing of like, will this actually be more comfortable, less comfortable? Will actually, like, for somebody who has smaller hands, am I going to feel like this thing is swimming on my hands? You know, they've also, because they've made the Joy-Cons larger and they've made the screen larger, so Ars Technica did a whole pixel by pixel breakdown to be like, we know what these two things are size to each other.
Right.
We know the screen is now 7.9 inches versus the Switch's 6.4 and the OLED's 7.
Oh, that is quite a lot bigger.
It is, yeah. It's a 1.5 inches larger, or almost a full inch larger than the two Switches we already have. So the Switch 2 again grows in size as well, and of course they have to have a larger bezel on the side because they have to have the magnetic ridge for the thing to be able to snap into the side of. They can't have it go behind the screen, I don't think, because it would make the case too thick. That's a guess. I can't say for sure, but it seems like it. And we don't know anything, obviously, about the weight, and we don't know anything about like how much batteries in it, or what kind of chips
so
are in it, or like any of those kind of
weight-wise-
things. We just know from the look of the thing.
Weight-wise, because it is bigger, I would expect it to be a little heavier,
Possibly.
or
Yeah.
at least not lighter.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to get most of your weight savings in something getting larger by using different materials in the case, or by using a different formulation of a battery, because you can get lighter versions of LiPo, of like lithium-ion batteries and stuff, so that could change the weight. Obviously, the Joy-Cons themselves have their own batteries, so they might be different as well. The Joy-Con
I'm looking
sticks
forward
got a
to,
little larger, so we know they're not the same sticks as what was in the previous.
I'm looking forward to when people get the Joy-Cons to do a teardown to see if they're actually that much different on the inside or if they have better materials.
Like I know everyone's crossing their fingers to be like, let them be Hall effect joysticks, and sure, but we haven't seen anybody report, they're an unknown company has put in an order for 500,000 Hall effect sensors. Like that hasn't happened, so we don't know about that. And there's also a lot of joysticks on the market that are better than the Switch's joysticks that they could be using in there.
Okay, there is one thing I do want to bring up because I've seen this repeated in several places. Yes, the easiest way to get your Joy-Cons to attach to your Switch is to slide them into the Switch. That is not the only way to get your Joy-Cons to sync to your Switch.
Yeah.
You can do that without attaching them to the Switch. That doesn't necessarily mean your old Joy-Cons would necessarily work with the Switch 2, but that does mean that just because you can't slide them into the Switch 2 they could possibly work with the Switch 2 if they want them to.
Yeah, the change controllers.
I don't think they've said that they'll work with them because I don't think they've made that thing yet, but I've just seen so many people who don't seem to realize you can hook up your Joy-Cons to your Switch without connecting them, and therefore they think that you're not going to be able to connect them to the Switch 2, which I get the logic, but the logic is wrong, and therefore we don't actually know.
Yeah. I have gotten into a situation where when I sent my Joy-Cons to be fixed because I had like drift and stuff, I got them back and realized that I couldn't, because I couldn't access I didn't have the Joy-Con to access the to push buttons on the thing.
Right.
I was like, wait, how am I actually going to sync this thing? Anyway, I got confused. It's because I didn't have the Joy-Con because I had sent them away.
Right.
And so I brought the Pro controller home.
Right.
But I didn't have the cable for it. And so
Right.
I was like, oh, this will be fine. I'll just connect it wirelessly. But then realized that I needed the Joy-Cons in order to access the system thing.
Yeah.
Could you not do it through the touchscreen?
It didn't. You need to push a button to be like, yes, I want to do that.
Okay. Yeah.
Whatever.
Okay.
Maybe I just got myself confused, but I was like, damn it, I'm stuck. Anyway.
The things, and we talked before the show, and I will behave because I have gone on record so many times saying that I hate speculation. Like when it comes to what's it going to do? How many backflips can it do?
I just want to quickly clarify. We didn't tell Beach he couldn't talk. What we said was we didn't want to go too hard into speculation of things we didn't really know or rumors because we would be here all day.
Right. But there's a series of questions that I thought were interesting. Like we were talking with Ian last night. Paul and I were here with Ian last night after we ate our shrimp toast. And an interesting thing for one thing is there is a big assumption that we make that this is going to be an NVIDIA Tegra setup, right? Everyone seems to understand that that's what it's supposed to be because that's it's the next newest version of what's in the current Switch, is whatever the NVIDIA Tegra is running. And Ian says, well, there's the AMD Zen 3 platform, which is meant to be that same kind of system on a chip setup with low power, laptop ready kind of idea, but also has high power graphics and everything. It's okay, there's a possibility there. Everyone's saying, well, the Switch 2 does DLSS. It's we don't know that. We don't know anything about what the intention was supposed to happen with this thing. I don't think any devs have talked about, here's what our kits support. So it's we don't, and we already know that the AMD Zen 3 thing apparently is being used in the Lenovo platform already. The whole Steam Deck, with the Switch coming out, giving rise to the Steam Deck being able to come out, and the Steam Deck coming out, and Steam being we support everyone making these new Switch-alikes, these Steam Deck-alikes, so that we can have more of these on the market, and we can put SteamOS on those. This weird feedback loop that we're being driven, and it's right, so what is actually being put into these things? And we don't know yet, but it's right, I guess there was a couple different options. And Nintendo has worked very well with AMD for many years in the past, and they've worked very well in recent years with NVIDIA as well. And that's what I thought is interesting. Is that's now a question mark. we didn't think it was a question mark before, but it's like that could be a question mark.
I think it's an interesting alternate to consider. I think it's still probably an NVIDIA chip.
I think it's probably likely it's NVIDIA as well. Other things that I thought of as well it's like by making the Switch 2 larger, when it comes to mid-cycle hardware refresh, do we see a Switch 2 Lite, and is that does that actually size down to something? Is it the same size but unibody?
Or even bigger.
Or is it even bigger, right? Like the Switch 2 Max. Like
a Switch 2 to blot out the sun.
because there are big Steam Decks coming out that are like 11 inches across. And it's like, that's crazy to me.
Okay.
Thick deck.
Yeah. It really leaves me in this position of like, I actually don't know what
Remember
the
when
next...
portable gaming meant that things could fit in your pockets? And I'm a girl, so my pockets suck.
The PS Vita gave us the PlayStation TV, and the Steam box was a thing for a while too. That was like that. We'll might see a resurgence of that since like, is it possible that the new Switch 2 leads into being like, we're gonna make a Switch 2 but with no controls and screen? It's like that's kind of against the whole point of a Switch. But
So is the Switch Lite. Though,
so is the Switch
in
Lite
in my mind. Like,
yeah.
As somebody who never uses their Switch undocked, like I just use it as a console.
Me too.
I'd be very happy to have a
okay,
screenless
here's
Switch.
something that goes back to like what we've actually seen. I am somewhat annoyed by the look of the dock.
That it's so
the
short?
round edge or the
No, the fact that it's still this big chunk of plastic that covers the screen. I was like, come on, this was your chance to make a smaller, low-profile dock so that it's easier to take places.
Right. Yeah. Which then it's like, did you make it that way for stability, for looks, or because
Well,
you're going to
so
pack
I
extra
assumed,
stuff into it?
The initial dock is made the way it is because they want you to see the screen go away. They want the screen covered. They don't want the reflection off of that where they kind of assume you're going to put it in your place or whatever. They want you to not look at it and be like, oh, the screen's on. But the little thing that they had, it's the stand for the Wii U gamepad, essentially let the Wii U gamepad be a thing. And you're just supposed to be able to pick it up and do whatever, and I'm like,
And you
you
can
could have made a lower profile dock. I'm sure of it.
Well, in the video, doesn't like the dock is lower. Like it doesn't cover. It only covers like half the screen in the video,
Yeah,
which is interesting. Like it is lower, but still not.
I just don't see why they have to have
I'm
that
not
part
sure.
on there
I think
at all.
it actually covers the whole screen.
No, you could kind of make out the screen on the edges.
I'm just going to have a boo. Sorry.
Like I'm making an assumption design wise with the first one, but I am assuming that the reason they want you to cover the screen is to kind of point out that this is like, don't look at this bit now. And yeah, I know there's going to be all these like, oh, just grab whatever dock and like take it with you. If you recall, there was a whole thing at the
So it is sticking out a little bit more than
covers
the-
quite a
there was
bit
a
of it,
whole
but-
thing when the Switch came out where Switches were getting bricked because of people using things that weren't the dock or the
the dock was.
it had to do with the USB-C protocols or whatever was bricking Switches. It doesn't happen so much anymore,
Yeah.
but that's a concern.
They're using an alternative mode
If-
for USB-C power delivery.
So with the new one, the screen does stick up a little bit,
More than the
Yeah.
previous Switch,
Yeah,
yes.
it looks a lot more like a toaster now.
and now I want the like Switch, sleep interface or whatever to just have like a little guy going like over the edge. And you
mean,
could like configure different people. To come
It
up
would
and
be
go.
kind of cute that if when
or
you
like whatever game you happen to be playing right now, be like, hey, you want to play?
Because some
Yeah.
designs that I had seen previously, like a couple months ago, showed a dock where you didn't cover the screen at all, and the idea behind that was that you put your Switch there, and while your Switch is in kind of like a rest state, the screen comes alive to show off like a clock or an animated feature of some kind.
Yeah, or ads is the other thing because that
Well,
was
yes,
supposed to. But
that-
but I don't mean that like in a bad way. Like it is a bad thing, but I mean like that was also supposed to be how the Wii U was going to do it too. That screen would come to life and show you an ad for a game.
Yeah,
put it in.
I know, just like
And you put it in, and then it's Alarmo.
yeah.
Yeah, it could just be an Alarmo, which a missed opportunity, right? Like my phone does that when it's sleepy
Well, a
time with
different-
my phone. If I do this with it, it goes into standby mode and shows me a clock.
A different
Like,
idea of a thing that could have been done. I don't really like the term missed opportunities because people use it badly.
yeah. Yeah, I don't think that it's a missed
They
opportunity.
missed
That
the opportunity to do it correctly.
Yes.
yeah,
Always.
yeah.
There's certain phrases I don't like. Don't test me on them. I have a lot of powers.
Anyway, are we
God, I want
sufficient?
to. I want to say no because I thought there's more we could say, but
There's got to be a better name than Switch 2.
the thing though,
It's fine. It's
fine.
appropriate.
Like,
it's
it's
better
like-
than new 3DS. It's,
Yeah,
it's
I'm-
better than some other things that I've seen suggested.
it's better than the
I'm
new
not
Switch.
saying it's like
Yeah.
the worst name out there. I'm just saying it feels so fucking un-Nintendo.
Yeah,
Also, is it just me or is the logo that like people have been throwing around for like 2 years
as a stand-in,
as a stand-in?
I think so.
funny.
Maybe, possibly.
I
They just sort of
think,
went with the obvious logo.
I think they should have called it the Switch 2, as in TU, as in the French for the informal U. So it'd be just like a follow-on with the Wii U, the Switch 2. That's what I think.
Because they really want to replicate the success they had with the Wii U.
Put their thumb in there. It's like we brought all the fucking you love these games when we put them on the Switch. You should have bought a Wii U. So anyway,
I think they're trying to pretend that didn't happen.
yeah, that's probably fair.
All right, let's.
I liked Super Switch. I also
Super
don't think
Switch
it's
would be good.
I don't think it's maybe a great name, but I liked that one.
Yeah, I did not, but that's. If it was a Super Switch, I would have played it anyway. I don't care what they call it. I just am looking forward to getting a chance to play it.
Switch Plus.
I mean, okay, if we're gonna talk like,
Swatch.
oh man, I would have been fine with that, but that's for different reasons. If we're gonna talk about the idea that like, oh, have you seen this? Do you want to buy it day one? No. I don't know what's on it.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I'd probably get one eventually. Nintendo makes a lot of games I like, but it's not. It's like, oh, new hardware. Cool.
I mean,
Yeah, what are the launch games going to be?
I am in favor of getting one at launch. I mean, I know that The Office will probably get one at launch, and we'll get like whatever kind of party game comes out for it, so we can all do it together and have
Probably
fun with
be
it.
Mario Kart
Be a fun little
based
event.
on the tease.
Yeah,
That's true.
But I feel like getting one for home. I'm
One-
like,
The only thing we know for certain is that there will be some kind of Mario Kart for it.
yeah, I would like a launch one, but I know that if we get a launch one, Heather's getting it. So if I ended up buying it, it would just be for her.
I mean, again, it depends on what games are on it. I figured to just sit in the living room and I'd still tag along with my
Yeah.
other Switch.
And we
Until
waited a
it's
while
not-
on like the Wii U, I think even too. Like we
The
waited,
Wii U,
we waited like a year.
The Wii U didn't pick up until Wind Waker HD came out because I hadn't played Wind Waker.
Yeah, and then we picked up the one that had
Got
it
the
built
fancy
in.
one,
So,
yeah.
So my favorite thing I saw about because Mario Kart was the only game like they just showed.
That's
like,
the
a
only thing
little
they
bit of
showed,
Mario Kart, right? And for some reason I saw a headline that was like, "Will there be a new version of Mario Kart 9 for the Wii U, for the Switch 2?" It was like
Mario Kart.
the game is
9
called Mario Kart, not Mario Kart 9.
Yeah,
Mario Kart 9 is Mario Kart Tour on the on the mobile.
on mobile, right? Mario
Nobody
Kart
wants
Tour is
that.
technically the next Mario Kart game. That's the 9th game. So the next game we're getting is Mario Kart X.
Well, that depends on
Ooh.
whether or not you count the Mario Kart with the actual carts on the Switch.
And it'll be like F-Zero. They'll all be hover cars. I mean, I know they did that a bit.
Yeah,
in
did they
8.
already have hover cars?
They did in 8, yeah. I gotta use the washroom, so I'll be right back.
Be just
All right.
leaving so quickly. Let's
Quickly.
get off of the Switch topic.
On to tree crimes.
Tree crimes.
I wrote the coming up for this mostly because I wanted to say tree crimes.
It's a good. Yeah, no, I appreciate this. I'm positive about this.
Yeah.
Yes, we should definitely write more
Season-
things based on just wanting to say words.
Season of witchcraft. No. And to be clear, these are not crimes being done against trees.
These are trees doing crimes.
This is a tree telling you to do crimes. You are
All
doing
right.
crimes on behalf of a tree.
I guess they are pretty rooted down. I was kind of into this idea of essentially, they're Ents? Is that how that's pronounced?
so-
Or ants or whatever?
Yeah.
Raising up off of the ground, being like, time to do crimes, and just going off. But I'll accept that. I'll accept a mob boss tree.
So the deal here is the new expansion for Diablo 4 is called Season of Witchcraft.
Okay.
And it's apparently adding a bunch of new mechanics with like you learn like witchy powers and do all sorts of stuff. But the witches that you are joining and helping and are actually their particular whatever coven works for this thing called the Tree of Whispers, which is an eldritch tree that whispers forbidden knowledge to you.
Okay.
And all at once in exchange is your head when you die.
Oh, so when I'm not using it anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems fine.
Fine.
That seems fine.
But it turns out that the tree that wants people's heads is annoyed because some of the heads that it is owed aren't coming to it, and so it's sending you off to hunt down what are called head rotten monsters.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is the tree crimes that I'm being sent on is grave robbing.
Yes. Is it grave?
You're like, I don't know about that.
Is it grave robbing if the thing that was in the grave has like gotten out by itself?
That's called a zombie at that point.
Because I think that's the largest part of this.
Well, I
is
mean, I think
sort
at
of
that
undead
point,
creatures.
I think at that point you really should bring the undead creature to the tree, and then the tree and the undead creature can have a debate over what the meaning of life is and what being dead really means, because that clearly is going to be the whole reason of why your head gets taken or
Yeah.
not.
So anyway, Season of Witchcraft is the new expansion for Diablo 4. It sounds like it'll be super cool. It seems weird that it's not called Season of the Witch. I mean, it's like right there. So you can just call it, but
I mean,
far be it from me.
What game was this again?
It's Diablo 4.
Diablo 4. Nice to know that you're finally hitting your witchy era. Good for you.
All right, let's talk about some of the things that didn't quite make it into the episode. Starting with, Suicide Squad. Remember that game that is inexplicably still going, considering
A lot of people didn't like it for reasons.
everybody
And
considered it a failure?
I think it was free on.
It was free on. It was
Epic?
given away on
Was
Epic a
Epic?
few months ago.
A while back. So now everyone can play the game that people didn't like.
Yeah. So they put a bunch of money into it. It came out. It was not very successful, but unlike other games that go through that process, they've kept it like it's like a,
Yeah,
it's a live service thing.
it's a live
so
service
they keep
style.
and so they've been supporting it for like a year or so. But,
Is it multiplayer?
yes.
Because I wasn't really sure on that. It seemed like a single player live service game.
Maybe it's a single player. I don't
But
even
maybe
know.
it had multiplayer. To be honest, I just didn't want to play it when people had hopes for it, so it was never on my radar.
So yeah, it was. It was.
Was Amazon?
Maybe it was Amazon that gave it away.
Somebody
gave it away. Lots of people got it
away.
for. I know I have it at the moment, and I've never played it. But
They just threw it in your pocket, and you're like, I didn't want. No, it's yours now. Okay.
like they're giving it away for free. I'm not gonna take it.
It's like that time that Apple gave everybody that U2 song against their will.
4-player co-op. So anyway, the story of the game has been progressing as they've done more updates and stuff. Now, one of the things that is sort of got that people got kind of annoyed with is that when it first came out, in the first the initial release, one of the things that happens is you kill Batman.
Again?
Specifically, like the Batman. So, and the
How
reason
many
why
times has this man died?
I mean, he's in comic books, so
A lot.
yeah. But specifically, the reason why people got particularly annoyed about this is that this is Rocksteady, who made the Arkham games that everyone
Wasn't
really
it
liked.
a different group within Rocksteady, though? I thought that was like a thing people kept bringing up.
I don't know.
The name was associated,
But
at least.
yeah, they made the Batman games that everyone really liked, and then they sort of make this game that everyone doesn't like, and in that game, they kill the Batman that is ostensibly in the canon with the previous
When you
games.
are playing the villains, if you want to win, you probably
Yeah,
end up killing
exactly.
the good guy.
And they kill him in a particularly, like, not very interesting way either.
Ah.
So why did they send him like a
They
tax
just-
evasion form for being Bruce Wayne?
I
Like,
Just standing on the train tracks and a train hits him.
I think, like, Harley Quinn just, like, hits him with a baseball bat or something.
Perfect.
I don't actually know what happened. Anyway.
He is a man.
It was a fairly ignoble death.
A man can be killed with a baseball bat.
And also they killed Superman, which is fun.
A kryptonite baseball bat.
Something like that. I don't know what they did to do it. But so and because this is like, you know, it's called Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. So
It's the point.
people
Yeah,
are
it seems like they
people
have
are
a-
killed, and that's like a
a
big
goal
thing.
written out
Lots of people are getting
very
killed.
obviously.
And so they're like, oh, we're serious. And so the game is coming to an end, or the live service part of the game is coming to an end.
Right, the story that they're putting out.
Yeah, because it hasn't been very successful. So like, okay, we're shutting it down.
Stuff eventually goes down.
They are,
yeah.
I believe, though, they are doing the thing where they're putting out an update to make it so it's not, if the servers go down, you can still play it.
Oh.
It's nice.
Okay,
That's great.
All right.
And so the story that they're making is coming to an end. The reason it's like, I don't know, Brainiac is taking over or mind controlling people and stuff. I don't know what the whole story is, but the story that they're telling is coming to an end. And because I guess it's supposed to be in canon with other stuff, they're like, oh, the story is coming to an end. It's kind of awkward that Batman and Superman are dead. It turns out those were just clones. They're actually fine. They basically just like retcon Batman and Superman back to life.
Sure.
At the end of the thing, in a particularly like awkward.
I mean, the clone
way.
thing is pretty overdone.
Got better.
At least it wasn't like a dream or something.
I like the
It's not that far off.
Batman slipped in a banana peel in his head, went to the doctor, found out he had cancer, died 6 months later. Good job,
yeah.
Jeff. Good job, Suicide Squad.
Yeah. So anyway, so I suppose I should have done a spoiler warning at some point in that conversation, but
How? Oh, wait. Sorry. A superhero dies and comes back to life in the DC or Marvel universe? Spoilers.
so yeah, basically it's like, you know, the game that nobody was really liking very much kind of ends with a fart.
Oh well.
But you know,
Hope you
there
bought
is.
it.
I hope you didn't pay a lot for it if you bought it.
Yeah.
Hey, here's something good.
I'll be the judge of that.
We've talked actually
Well,
before
it's good
about
old games. That's good.
we've talked before about GOG has been putting some work into sort of video game preservation stuff.
Yeah.
And sort of committing to a bunch of games being that they will support these games.
And a lot of what they do is trying to take older games that would not be playable on newer versions of Windows and being like, we can make that work, and then
Yeah.
put the work in. Yeah.
So they have now officially they have joined the ranks of the European Federation of Video Game Archives, Museums, and Preservation, aka FGAMP.
I'm sorry. What was that? That last word? Could I would really like that repeated.
The European Federation of Video Game Archives, Museums, and Preservation, FGAMP.
FGAMP.
EFGAMP.
Yeah.
FGAMP.
All right.
I think
Cool.
you don't pronounce the "v" in video because it'd be F-vamp.
Yeah. If you are,
Europatat too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
please, actually, like considering the name of this, it's like European Federation of Video Game Archives, Museums, and Preservation. It feels like a name that could be like, you know, you could use slightly different words, or you could adjust things a little. Like, if you're if you're watching this video, get in the comments and come up with what a better acronym or a better name for the European Video Game Preservation Group that will be a better acronym, because FGAMP is not a good acronym.
Yeah, because like FIFA is not the English name of that federation. It is the French name for that federation. It's the short version of the French name.
Fédération.
Right.
Fédération
I mean, this is
Internationale
European.
de-
The words don't have to be English.
So get the Germans on this and see if they can give us like just one long word to say.
Speaking of which, so the kinds of institutions that are in the Royal Library of Denmark, Germany's Computerspielen Museum, that's all one
It's
word.
a good one.
Computerspielen Museum, which is computer speaking museum.
Spiel, I think, is supposed to be game in this case, isn't it?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So it would
The
make a
National
little bit
Video
more
Game
sense.
Museum in the UK, Video Game History Foundation in the United States. So they're joining up with these, and they will be able to pool resources and take advantage of stuff. One of the things that has been proposed is that, you know, all these museums and stuff, the idea is they're preserving all these games for, you know, in study and interest or whatever. GOG is a video game distribution platform.
They sell this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there some way that those two things could be connected together? Now, there's
I'm sure they're working on
a lot
it.
of situations, the preservation is the only reason why the preservation works is because it's predicated on the idea that they're not selling it commercially.
Right.
So maybe that wouldn't work, but it's a fun thing to think about.
But you know, like, because I mean, interesting thing about this, of course, is the like active preservation of, you know, if you can spread something around and more people have copies of it and everyone gets to play it and you keep that alive, it's like, well, it never really becomes it's part of history, but it never really goes away, right? Like, that's why artworks going on tour become that as well. It's like that keeps it in the public's mind. It's like you can walk into a museum and you can see a thing,
Sure.
but you can also sell copies of that print to people around the world so they can see what Van Gogh looked like without his ear and how he thought he looked without his ear. But anyway, I like this because it's this, it could lead to, remember like the Abandonware website? And there's just so much stuff on the Abandonware website, and people are like, "Oh, that means it's completely legal to download." It's like it kind of isn't, but no one's going to say boo about it. But actually, somebody might say boo about it, and there's room, I think, for things like that, where it's like there's literally no one left who can claim copyright on this game, or the company has fallen apart 6 times already, and the IP is floating out in the ether, and like those things finding their way, like that kind of stuff finding their way into places like GOG to be able to be like, we can help you play this on this old game on Windows. We can be a part of that process too. We can help bring stuff out of these archives and museums to even make them more available to people. Maybe that's part of this plan as well. Not just that you have to go to a place to go play it.
I mean,
That'd be
I'm
nice.
sure there's talks of that kind of thing. It sounds like it's way more complicated than.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it in the past that, you know, trying to the sort of stone wall of the in some cases the video, whatever the video game lobbying group is, the video game
ESA?
Yeah, where it is the ESA.
Yeah.
Where they're like, well, we think the video game companies would do a better, or are more in a position to be
right.
doing that archiving
whole
themselves.
Yeah.
Garbage thing.
So we don't think that the various
No, I think.
companies are going to do it.
I mean, they're wrong. I think it's easier if the companies would just do it. Is probably more accurate.
Yeah.
But that statement of they should just know.
Yeah. I like Gelderin saying of please exit the museum through the GOG gift shop. And it's like, that's fair. Like maybe the thing is being able to show it off to people, and then, but also being able to say you can buy this as part of a package of games to play on your home machine. Emulated, so it's not quite the same experience, but it is close. And
Or, I mean, you can do interesting things like, you know, that game isn't available, but here is a modern game that is inspired by that game, or a remake of that game,
Yeah.
or whatever.
yeah.
All right. I'm actually going to jump one of the other story. I did mark the story here. There's a PDF that you can play Doom in. It's not really that. Like that's the extent. That's the story.
But it isn't like I can play Doom on this pregnancy test.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's important. It is not a pregnancy test.
Yes.
No, it's PDFs can parse JavaScript. And so somebody compiled Doom into JavaScript and then ran that JavaScript in a PDF and then displayed the output of the PDF as text in text fields because that's the only way that they could actually like make things think.
Is that not
dangerous?
Does that not? Yeah, if you download a random PDF with JavaScript in it, is that not open to?
I mean, it's sandboxed. Like you can't access stuff on the computer itself.
Oh, okay.
So you should be okay.
The
So I'm used to my PDFs being very static, Paul, and it seems very weird that they cannot be.
All right, fine, I'll
PDF
switch over.
PDF viewers are made to be sandboxed, so they can't do anything. They can't break the sandbox.
Okay, so
It's real good.
It's about.
when you say you can play Doom, I can play Doom through the PDF.
Yeah.
It's not just like it's playing a video.
No,
Kind of thing.
no. You put you can either use a controller. I think you can use a controller, or you can use the arrow keys, or you put your cursor in a box here and like type things.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because
okay.
the PDF
I mean, that's
doesn't
kinda interesting.
initially have a way to accept input other than in a text field. Anyway,
It's a great trick.
but the last thing that I want to talk about is there's been an update to Neverwinter Nights.
That game's like a bazillion years old.
It's true. It's true.
Even the remake is like a bazillion years old now.
I mean, it's slightly less than the other bazillion. If the other one is 2 bazillion, then it's like 1
okay,
bazillion.
like 1 bazillion as opposed to the 2 bazillion.
It's a community update, isn't it?
Yeah, so what's interesting about this? So the original game came out in 2020 or 2002. So whatever, 23 years ago.
Yes.
An enhanced edition came out in 2018, so that's still 7 years ago.
2018, before the pandemic, therefore
Bazillion.
a bazillion years ago.
But there's a big, it has a very, very strong following. Specifically, one of the big things about it is that it had the sort of, what is it called? Persistent worlds dungeon things where you could like build your own sort of, it had basically like a world builder thing in it.
Right.
Where you could like build and even like run basically D&D campaigns in it.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
people
It was
were
super
using,
neat.
People were using that largely to build games for their friends and them to play or to like get online and to pass them around to people. Yeah, it's like making your own splat books and stuff almost. Your own adventures.
But it hasn't been, this update as actually was made by fans. So this is on the Steam page. This release was developed for. This is just put out a new update. This release is developed for personal enjoyment and out of the goodwill for our fellow players and creators by unpaid software engineers from the Neverwinter Nights community. Clippy, Daz, Jasper, Niv, Shad Guy, Soren, Tiny Giant, and Virus Man.
Thank you, Virus Man.
Yeah, I was just saying, maybe double check Virus Man's code.
Yeah.
Just say
Just
before you put the patch in.
now, obviously,
What-
there's going to be like tons of features and
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
Like,
so-
what's some cool stuff?
Multi-sample anti-aliasing and anti-stropic filtering is built in now. So
nicer looking.
nice looking things. One of the big things, apparently, they've totally revamped all the networking code.
Oh,
So it actually works better with sort of modern systems.
nice.
They have done work to make it multi-processor aware. Like it was it was always just a single core game.
Okay.
Which in the modern era put kind of a cap on how, like, even though it's a game from so long ago, it couldn't its performance couldn't get up to like a ridiculously high. There was always a performance cap on it because it was a single-threaded game.
Right.
And so
That's cool. Okay.
they made it fancy. They made it all multi-threaded stuff. New script compiling, new tool set quality of life improvements. They have the full list of over lots and lots of changes.
Do we know if Neverwinter Nights was ever open sourced at all? Like, did BioWare ever just say you can have? Because I mean, it's BioWare and EA. So did anyone ever say, "Hey, you guys can actually have this now," or is this literally like this is modding work?
Like, is it still BioWare the remake, or are we talking about the original?
I don't think.
I thought the remake was made by a different team.
I believe the remake was done by a different team. Yes, and I don't think
stands to reason. Okay.
I don't think that team was involved in this either.
Not likely.
This article doesn't talk about it being open sourced.
Sequel was developed by Obsidian.
Yeah.
Oh, and Beamdog worked on. Beamdog is who maintains Neverwinter Nights because there's a lot of former BioWare devs on Beamdog, so that makes sense. And so this is Neverwinter Nights, not Neverwinter Nights 2.
Yes.
Okay.
Because apparently Neverwinter Nights 2 isn't as interesting a game.
Right.
From a sort of modding standpoint.
From developing your own adventures and stuff, I guess, maybe too?
Yeah.
Okay.
And also apparently, according to this, the rights for Neverwinter Nights 2 exist somewhere between half a dozen companies, including Atari, Wizards of the Coast, and Hasbro.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
So it's probably
everyone
not
just like giving up on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's too bad then that it hasn't actually reached a point where, I mean, if the fact that the game is out and that people are like, unpaid engineers are dumping in a bunch of work into improving this thing, and I'm like, but man, it has been decades since this thing has been worked on, and it comes back around to the game preservation idea of like, this is exactly the kind of game that if it was open sourced to some extent, even chunks of it, you could get way more work happening on this, which then just means that just means people will be playing a free game and not playing a new video game of D&D stuff that we'll be putting out. So
We don't need to go down that cranky path.
we don't. You're right.
Anyway, that is all the news stuff that fit to talk about today. We'll obviously, as new rampant speculation comes out about the Switch 2, we'll make sure to cover that.
What was it? It's April 2nd when they're going to do an actual...
So depending on where you're looking, it's either April 2nd or February 4th.
So February 4th is a Sunday. I don't think it's that date.
Because the European version of the ad puts it in the opposite, puts it in
2024.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're an American and look at the European version, you'll get confused. And if you're a European looking at the American version, you'll get confused.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is they should have just written it out.
Probably. But it's supposed to be April 2nd.
April 2nd, yes.
That doesn't mean we won't hear things or proper leaks or other things before that. But chances are good that if we want to stick to stuff that's actually been said and released, it might be a while.
One of the speculations I saw is as to like why they did this sort of first look rather than having their ducks sort of more more ready to go in terms of being like, this is it and here are all the cool games for it, is that it does give their it does give development partners a little more leeway that they can be like,
they can kind of start saying things about their software coming out for
we don't have to be all coy anymore.
Yeah.
It is April 2nd in Japan.
So maybe info will come out there. Yeah.
If they're saying April 2nd, they probably mean April 2nd in Japan.
I watched the trailer on an American site, so I assumed that when they told me April 2nd, they meant North America.
I would assume so
not
too.
A Japanese time zone, because that would be weird for marketing reasons.
Yeah.
Anyway, we don't need to derail the ending of the show. We do it at the beginning.
Yeah.
But anyway, thanks everybody for watching. If you haven't watched the episode of ChillPoint yet, you should do that up on our YouTube channel.
Go find it before it finds you.
YouTube.com/LRRVG. It is either up on our YouTube channel or behind you right now. Let us know if it was behind you.
If you have time to type that out
Yeah.
before it gets you.
But for now, thanks for watching, and we will talk to all y'all later. Bye.